All right, Sober Psychology crew, it's Michael, your host, your guide, and the guy who has stared into the abyss of a whiskey bottle and somehow crawled out alive. Today we're tackling a topic that is it's really heavy, and it's one that is I'm talking like ship sinking heavy. I questioned whether or not we were going to do this, but we're talking about suicide today. I don't know what kind of bans or what kind of trouble I'm going to get in, but this is a topic that I believe needs to be talked about unabashedly, uncensored. It needs to be discussed. So today, that's just what we're going to deal with, and not the sanitized version that you find in a pamphlet, but the raw, ugly truth of what it means to feel like life is not worth living. Here's the hook to all of this, I guess, if there could be a hook. It's that the darkness isn't your destiny. It's a signal. It's a screaming alarm that something in you, in your mind, is broken. And the silver lining to it is that you're stronger than you think for even still being around. Okay. I've been there. I know what this is like. I know what it's like to be ready to go in that way. Many nights where I would just give in to what my head was saying, and it was saying give up, and that's it. And I almost listened a couple of times, So anyways, we're diving into the psychology of suicide, why it creeps in, what it's trying to tell you, and how to fight it ultimately. Just expect hard data, expect some studies and tips that aren't just fluff. Plus, if we can even do it for this topic, we'll maybe throw in some humor. I don't know. We'll just see how it goes. But if I can't laugh at the time that I thought that a bar stool was my only destiny, then what's the point, Whether you're listening on Spotify, hiding from the dishes, or watching me unravel on YouTube, this one is for anyone who has ever felt the void. I'm there with you. So let's face it together. Welcome to the show where we break down the mental health stigma, navigate sobriety with humor, and prove that it's okay to laugh while you heal. Let's get real, let's get honest, and maybe a little weird. Growth is messy, but you don't have to do it alone. This is Sober Psychology. Thank you all for being back again. Last week we threw out a video on feelings, which as I was looking into it and as I was looking into all of the studies, I realized it ties very closely with something that I've struggled with personally and have known way too many people who have struggled with it, and that is the topic of suicide. I'm not holding back on this. I'm not going to censor words. I'm not going to hide anything. And maybe this YouTube video gets taken down because of it. I don't know. I've told you all this before. This isn't about the likes and the clicks for me as much as it is about getting the information out there and opening up a conversation, destigmatizing mental health and the troubles and struggles that come with that. Okay. As someone who's been through the fires and somehow or another came out on the other side, if I'm not turning all that I've gone through into some type of asset to help other people, I think I've failed. So we're going to dig into it. It's going to get ugly. A lot of the episodes that I've had recently will tie into this. I think the majority of the episodes that I've had really just overall, I think this is episode 32. So you can go back and look at any of the content. We talk a lot about these studies that I'm going to be bringing up. This one is tough. And I had a hard time writing it just because, like I said at the beginning, the intro, I was there and I was ready. I had it planned. Nobody knew about it. And I was just waiting. I know a lot of people who have been through it. As far as struggling with those thoughts, the suicidal ideations. I know a lot of people who have chosen not to. I know a couple of dudes actually who have attempted it and failed. And man, if you could see the lives that they lead today, yeah, that is a walking testament to why this isn't the option. Okay. So we're going to talk about it. If it's something that you've struggled with, if it's something that has affected you or your family in any way, I would love to talk to you about it, because honestly, that would help me out too, probably. But we're gonna dig in. We're gonna dig in. We're gonna just go ahead and start off just saying I'm gonna cut through the fog. Suicide, psychologically, is the act of intentionally ending your life. It's driven by a belief, however warped that belief may be, that death is better than living. It's not weakness, it's not giving up. It's just a desperate response to unbearable pain, a cry for help, if you will. Edwin Schneidman, who is I guess he's a pioneer in suicidology. That's a real thing. I had to look it up. But he called it a psych ache, which is just mental anguish that's so intense that it feels like suicide is the only escape. And that's a dark place to be. Your brain is 100% involved in this process. You have the prefrontal cortex, which, as we've discussed, that's the one that plans and reasons. That's that part of your brain. It gets completely hijacked by the amygdala, which is the alarm system that doesn't process anything well, and it's constantly just screaming that there is no hope. And that's what happens. The amygdala has taken over. It's hijacked your brain, right? There was a study in neuroscience in 2018 that showed that in this state, you've got this amygdala overdrive, right? Like suicidal thoughts begin to spike the amygdala activity by about 25%. And what this is going to do immediately is start to cloud your judgment. And then your serotonin drops significantly, which, as we've talked about, and as most of you know, low serotonin is linked to depression. And then that correlates with a 30% higher risk of suicide. And then there's a theory, and I don't know if it's a medical term, but it's called a cognitive tunnel. And this is where suicidal ideation begins to narrow your focus. And I think it's roughly like 20%. I read it out of the Journal of Affective Disorders, I think. But so it narrows your focus completely. So again, you're going to have the amygdala screaming. You're going to have clouded judgment. You're going to have severe depression, and then you're going to have less and less focus, right? That's how this process starts to really take off. This is not abstract, by the way. It's your brain beginning to betray you. It's telling you that the pain is here forever. It's going to last forever. And it is 100% a lie, but it feels true. Okay. I know what that feels like, of where, say it's even something just like a breakup. Maybe you're stressed out at work, maybe a lot of stress is at it, and then all of a sudden you have a breakup. And that one thing in your mind hurts so much that your brain is going to tell you, this is it. This is how it's always going to be. And that's where the hopelessness feeling begins to happen. All of the judgment gets clouded, the serotonin begins to drop, and then you're in for a world of hurt, because you're going to lose focus, and all you could think about is that pain. We've talked about this before, and this is the weird thing about how the brain works. As an alcoholic, we learned, and this is just a mental thing as well. It's not just for recovery folks, but my brain is constantly trying to kill me and make it look like an accident. Why? I don't freaking know. I don't understand it. But there are so many ways that my brain is playing tricks with me to try and just end me. Maybe it's tired. I don't know. I don't understand it. But we've talked about this from the faith perspective, something that helped me accept this and understand this a little bit better. But imagine sitting in your driver's seat of your vehicle and you're in a parking lot, okay? And you backed into a parking spot. And before you start messing around with stereotypes on that, backing into a parking spot is a skill. So don't go ahead and judge those people. But imagine you're sitting in your driver's seat, you backed into a parking spot, you've got the next row of parking over there, right? And you have one of those little air fresheners just dangling in your rear view mirror, right? The car that is in the next row of parking looks smaller than that air freshener. And why is that? It's because the air freshener is closer to your face. This is the same way that we handle our problems. As soon as something happens, we immediately put that problem right there in front of our face. And it's the most glaring, blatant thing in our lives. Everything else falls to the wayside because this is our problem. And it could be, I lost my job. I'm not getting paid enough. I'm not going to be able to make the mortgage. I broke up with my girlfriend. Whatever it is, we'll put that issue so close in front of us that that becomes the only thing that we see. Everything else is so much smaller and so much more insignificant. And while you're doing that, you're missing out on your value. You're missing out on the potential for growth from the situation that you're in. For me, if I'm doing that and all of my problems are right here, I'm putting my fear over my faith. I'm putting my issues so close to me because I think I can white knuckle it, I can grit my teeth, or that this is going to be the end all be all. And that shows how agnostic I am in my faith with God. So for me as a Christian, in those moments, if I'm praying, if I'm asking God to see myself the way that he sees me, if I'm drawing closer to him and I'm putting him right here, then all of a sudden my problems are so much smaller, right? This could be done with whatever it is that you use, but I mean, and we're going to talk about methods to start to cope and work through this, but that's what we do. Our problems are so big, they're right here. Your brain is just a freaking drama queen. That's the reality of all of this. It's going to convince you that a bad day is the apocalypse. Feelings are not facts. Please hear me when I say this. We can go over here and say it. Feelings are not facts. Over here, feelings are not facts. And over here, feelings aren't facts. We had to do the round table thing. You know how it goes. But even though feelings aren't facts, your feelings will 100% sell you a one-way ticket to despair if you let them. That's the caveat. If you let them. Okay? So why does suicide happen? What are the psychological drivers behind it? Suicide doesn't just happen, if you will. It's built on a foundation of pain, isolation, and hopelessness. Those are going to be the three main elements to what get us to this point. Pain, right? That's typically where it begins. And through that pain, we develop utter misery because we're, again, putting our problems right here. We're hurting a lot. We're not dealing with it. We're ignoring it. For me, it was drinking as much as I could to hide the pain, which led to isolation because you're miserable. You don't want to be around anybody. You want to just hide. You feel like you're a burden or a cancer to everybody else. So now you've got the pain, you've got the isolation, and then through that becomes the hopelessness because the whole time you're in isolation, your brain's just working on you constantly, right? So we'll break it down just a little bit. As far as hopelessness is concerned, you could look at Aaron Beck. He did research that shows that hopelessness predicts roughly 90% of suicides. That's freaking unreal. And I think he did this through the American Journal of Psychiatry, if I'm not mistaken. It's not just sadness, it's believing that nothing is going to change. Then you have the isolation, the social disconnection. What's his name? John Cacioppo? John Cacioppo did some work on loneliness, I believe. And he showed that isolation begins to increase suicide risk by 25%. Humans need connection like we need oxygen, right? We are tribal. We are village people oriented, like we need our people, whether it be family. And I'm not saying you need to have 40 good friends. You may only have one, and that's fine if that works for you. I'm that same way. I'd rather have 5 close people in my life than 100 people that I call friends, right? But it's that social isolation that begins to increase that suicide risk. And then you've got the hopelessness feeling, that pain, that cognitive distortion, right? And cognitive therapy and research, I think it was in 2017, talks about suicidal people overestimate their pain's permanence by 30%, which ultimately that just means that you can't see any way out. So we have that pain, like I said, we put it right here in front of our face. It becomes so exacerbated that we feel like there's no way out, and then that leads to that hopelessness, right? Like, this is all I'm ever going to feel. That's your brain trying to trick you and tell you, oh, this is here to stay. Sorry about you. And that's just not the truth. And it's tough because you fall into that cycle, right? And we'll talk about this later, but like for an addict, alcoholic, we are seeking something that helps us to not feel that pain anymore. And it pushes all of that pain away momentarily, right? I can get drunk enough to where I just don't know anything anymore. I kind of go numb. But then there's that shame cycle that exists with that, right? The next day you feel 10 times better. I heard somebody talking about drinking the other day, and it was saying that what drinking does is buy your happiness from tomorrow. Because you're going to drink, you're going to be happy, you're going to smile, maybe just a little bit, and then tomorrow you're miserable. Puts you in that cycle. We talked about the shame cycle with the feelings last week and the week before, for that matter. But the hard truth with all of this is that you're not above any of it, right? You hear these things. I think a lot of people that I talk to from mental health stuff, from the extreme side of it at least, they kind of lift their chin up, and it's like, oh, I'm not. I wouldn't do that. I would handle it a different way. Like, you're not above it. We're all human, right? We're wired for connection and meaning. And when those begin to break, your brain starts to write a very tragic ending. And in addiction, this is a perfect storm. It's terrifying. You drink to numb the pain, but it isolates you further. I mean, I did this. Friends gone, family distant, and me telling myself that nobody cares about me. And it happened so freaking fast. You would not believe how quickly it could happen. Addiction Journal in 2020 found that addicts are 10 times more likely to attempt suicide than non-addicts. Okay? This just shows the consistency of mental health issues and pain. Addicts and alcoholics are not good at dealing with that type of emotional pain. We act all tough. We got face tattoos. We got ear gauges. We got, whatever it is that you want to associate with the stereotype of addicts, alcoholics. We're very sensitive creatures. Typically, addicts, alcoholics, if you look at studies that show this, but they tend to have significantly more empathy than other people, normal people, if you will. And that is tough, right? So to see that stat where addicts, alcoholics are 10 times more likely to attempt suicide than non-addicts is wild. And then we talked about that shame guilt spiral or whatnot. Like, guilt over the substance use is going to up the risk of suicidal ideation. And then that gets you into that isolation stage where 60% of addicts are going to report loneliness as a relapse trigger. 60%, over half of addicts, alcoholics are going to talk about loneliness being a relapse trigger, right? There's no accountability. There's no warmth. There's no connection. And we need that. As it's not a weak thing to say, like, I really miss my friends, or I really want to find some good friends. Like, who the hell told you that you had to go through life on your own? Like, how does that make you stronger? If you look at evolutionary psychology and evolutionary science in general, it makes you weaker when you're by yourself. Go ask a lone wolf what his survival rate is compared to one that's part of the pack. You see what I'm saying? And this could go so many different levels too, right? Like us Christians that, and I'm falling into this category right now, just full transparency, but Christians that don't lock in and plant roots with a church, like that's a tough one. That's a tough one just in general. That's your community, right? That does not make you stronger to be by yourself. But we want to have this tough guy mentality. And I get it too, because, like, this is the wild part. We talked about this, I think, last week as well. But we're in a generation, a time in history where we're so hyper connected. Everybody's hyper connected. I could send a text message to someone across the world right now. You could FaceTime anybody. You can put on VR glasses and sit there and just chat with someone for hours and hours and hours, talking about nothing while you're like building a house. We're so hyper connected, but yet it's constantly reported that people, especially in America, feel more lonely than ever before. There's no community. There's no connectivity. There's no connection with people groups. I mean, when I moved out here and bought a house in a neighborhood, it was wild because it's like no one talks to anybody. No one's friends. No one wants to hang out. No one wants to get to know each other. Like everyone's just so isolated. I'm not getting into political stuff either. But however you want to view the COVID lockdown stuff, that hurt. That hurt a lot of individuals. That's where my alcoholism, as far as the amount I was drinking and the amount of isolation, that's where it took off. And I know of a lot of, from what I've read, a lot of addicts, alcoholics, that was their end. That was their demise, because you're forced into isolation, and that's scary. That's scary. But I mean, it's not just addiction. You know, you feel this at work, faking it through meetings while your soul is just screaming. You know, you feel it in your relationships, hiding pain just so you could keep the peace. You know, just stop pretending. You know, pain ignored is pain amplified. There it is. I got a one-liner. I've been trying to like tell myself to like naturally let one-liners happen each episode, and I fail. But all right, so here we go. I hope this clips out into some short, but stop pretending. Pain ignored is pain amplified. Stop pretending. Pain ignored is pain amplified. Stop pretending. Pain ignored is pain amplified. Okay, I had to hit some camera angles with it. I was proud of that one. But you begin to ignore the pain, it begins to amplify the pain. So stop pretending that you have it all together. Nothing makes you weak in a relationship. I'm talking to you especially, fellas. Nothing makes you weak in a relationship if you go to your partner and if they're loving and caring enough and you tell them, hey, I'm real hurt right now. And it doesn't even have to be what they're doing. You can just tell them, I'm torn up from something that happened at work. Whatever it is. Or you don't even need an excuse like that. You can just wake up and say, hey, look, I don't know what's going on with my head, but I'm just in a really weird place. Talk about it. All right. It doesn't make you weaker. Recovery is where this begins to get very, very real. Because sobriety by design strips you of the armor, right? Or what you thought was armor that you had on while you were drinking and drugging, right? There's no more numbing with the booze or the pills or whatever. You begin to feel every single thing, right? Step 9 in AA is where we begin to start making the amends, right? That's going out there and making those amends. And it forces you to face the pain that you've caused. I mean, I did this. I apologized to my family and I felt like I deserved to just disappear. And it's tough, right? But that's just one piece of all of this. Suicide's a shadow that begins to loom everywhere. You know, when you lose a job, when you lose a loved one, or even just like yourself, you lose your sense of self, right? It's just this gross, dark, heavy shadow. And it just builds and builds and builds unless you're going to face it, right? So we can talk about the science of fighting back. How do we survive all of this? How do we start to claw our way out of this nonsense? And we can do this by hitting the research, okay? I got some research for you guys. Surviving suicidal thoughts isn't about thinking positive, okay? I freaking hate the way therapy has started to do that. It's not about thinking positive. You know, it's not, no. It's about rewiring your brain, okay? We've talked about the neuroscience and neuroplasticity and how your brain is actually going to change. It changes physically through what you're doing, right? And so focus on that. But we have to rewire our brains. It's just not about thinking positive is not, that doesn't suffice, okay? Thomas Joyner, I think, yeah, his interpersonal theory of suicide back in 2005, nailed it, says that 3 factors begin to drive this whole process of rewiring your brain, okay? So you have thwarted, that's a tough word, thwarted belongingness, you have perceived burdensomeness, and then you have acquired capability, okay? If you break one of those, you begin to weaken that chain, okay? We're going to break this down, don't worry. The Journal of Clinical Psychology in 2019 found that strong social bonds cut suicide risk by 30%, okay? And then as far as your purpose is concerned, meaningful goals begin to reduce the suicide ideation by 25%. And then therapy, we say it all the time, this is what I'm going to school for, so obviously I'm an advocate for it, but cognitive behavioral therapy, listen to this. Listen to me say this real quick. Cognitive behavioral therapy lowers suicide attempts by 50% in high-risk groups. Now, I'm not a math guy. I'll go ahead and let y'all know, but I do know that 50% is half. of 100. That's just the way it works. That's the way it maths, okay? Cognitive behavioral therapy lowers suicide attempts by 50% in those high-risk groups. Your brain absolutely can heal. I'm telling you, Nature Neuroscience back in 2020 showed that mindfulness and therapy boost your prefrontal cortex activity by about 20%, which this begins to counter that bastard of an amygdala that you have that's telling you that everything is hopeless. In recovery, this becomes absolutely life-saving. It's just sharing in meetings or calling a sponsor. That alone cuts isolation, right? But this is absolutely universal. You tell a friend that you're struggling. You set one goal. Seek help. It works. I swear to you. Okay? You don't have to have a million friends. Call one friend. This begins to build trust within yourself and within that relationship. It begins to cut those suicidal thoughts. You start to have this community. Just reach out. Reach out. You don't even have to have a phone call. Like if you have buddies that you play games online with, okay, do that. Do that. You could even BS your way through it and say, hey, I really need help working on something on my truck. Does anybody have any time to come by and help me out? Okay, I don't know, whatever it is. Be creative here. Help is great, but asking for it feels like admitting that you're an absolute train wreck. I hate asking for help. I'm awful at this. Don't come talk to me about asking for help. I'm the example of what not to do. Okay. I even calling sponsor is tough for me, and it shouldn't be. But I remember a while back, we call it 10-stepping in AA, right? And it's basically telling on yourself. And I called my sponsor. I was real banged up emotionally. Like I was just dealing with a lot. I guess it was just one of those times. But I can remember even getting to a point where my voice was kind of wavering, and that normally doesn't happen for me. But I was expecting him to tell me to just man up, gut up, deal with it, whatever, F your feelings, like that kind of thing. But instead he said, I'm glad you called. Good job calling, or something to that effect. And I felt like I just won the lottery. Okay. My brain had worked this up to be such a bigger deal. And I did the right thing by fighting that freaking amygdala, right? Your brain is going to tell you that nobody cares, and it's 100% lying. Okay. I don't even know you, and I care, right? If anybody's dealing with this, I care about you, right? But you have to call it out, or it's going to keep you in the dark. I promise. So what happens when we begin to ignore these warning signs? Okay. If you ignore your pain, you just begin playing Russian roulette. But that's all you're doing. The hard truth is that you're not fine. If you're thinking about suicide, you're not fine. If that thought pops up in your head, you're not fine. I've recently struggled with this. It's something a while back that popped up again for the first time in a long, long time. And I was like, well, where is that coming from? What is that all about? I don't like that. I'm not fine, right? I can't just brush that off and say, okay, well, maybe, tomorrow will be a better day, whatever. I'm not okay. I need to start looking into it, right? Psychological medicine I was trying to memorize this. Psychological medicine back in 2020 found that bottling emotions ups suicide risk by 20%. Okay. That's a given. That's obvious. And then impulsivity was an interesting one for me to read, but thinking about how impulsive suicide actually can be. But 40% of attempts happen, listen to this, within the hour of ideation. Within the hour of having suicidal thoughts, 40% actually happen. That's when you are just clustered, man. Like your brain is going wild and you just want to do anything you can to stop it, right? And it's very important to pay attention to that. And then you've got 60% of suicides are tied to unaddressed mental health. It's just ignoring it and pretending it's going to go away. It doesn't go away. I swear to you. It may for 10 years. It's going to come back. Address it. Face it. Name it. Tame it. All that. Whatever. Address it. Dig in your heels, bow your chest. In recovery, this is absolutely deadly. You're sober, but the pain is still there. Shame, guilt, loneliness. I mean, I almost broke it 8 months sober. I mean, I thought I'm just better off gone. I didn't act, but it was close. It's that quick. It's that easy. And outside of recovery, it's the same thing. You hide the pain at work, with friends, in relationships, whatever, until it just absolutely explodes. You face it or it festers. Okay? Period. Go for it. So tip number 1, how are we going to face this? Reach out. Just reach out right now. Stop this effing podcast. Reach out to somebody. Connection absolutely kills isolation, even just a phone call, okay? You can call someone, you can text a friend, you can say, I'm struggling. Social science and medicine says that this cuts loneliness by 25%. And you could join a group online or in person, like a hobby club or AA, whatever it is, that gives you that sense of belonging, right? Get in with your dude. Like I try and game with one of my friends from back home, and that means a lot to me. We don't do it enough because life happens and it's tough to sit down and play video games, but it's like that is a connection point. We talk about life and that's good, right? Like that gives you a sense of belonging. And then just being honest. We talked about this last week too. Just say, I'm not okay. If you say I'm not okay and someone looks down on you for that, get them out of your life. They don't need to be in there, right? There are plenty of people out there that will care if you say I'm just not okay. This is going to grow that trust within yourself and within whatever person you're talking with. It's going to grow that trust factor between you two, and that's very important. Okay, I called my sponsor when I was really low, right, and I felt weak, that kind of conversation, that's a brother. That's my brother. And that is, that saves me, that saves whoever's calling. Like it rewires your brain, gives you that sense of belonging, right? You don't need to be in recovery for this to happen. You just reach out to anyone, anywhere. It's not weakness, it's war. My email's out there. You can email me. You can message me on YouTube, or you can message me on YouTube, comment. You could Instagram, all the socials, whatever. Reach out to me. I'll get the notification. I'll reach out to you. And if it's dark enough, if it's one of those things that we need to have a conversation, like I'm here for you. I'll do whatever I can. 988 is the suicide hotline. That's an important one too. They're there for you. It's not just a bunch of people waiting to dismiss your feelings or whatever you're going through. They're there to help. Okay. This is not weakness. This is war. You're going to war. Okay. This is important. So tip number 2, break the thought loop. This is an important one too, but suicidal ideation becomes a very intense trap and you have to interrupt it as quickly as possible. How do you do that? Great question. Let me give you some answers. Begin the process of learning how to distract yourself, or your mind at least. Do one thing: walk, draw, sing, I don't care, whatever. But this begins to cut that like rumination, right? Like find something. It's like when you spray a bottle of water on a cat's nose or something when they're doing something wrong. Like it just jolts them awake for a second. It's a distraction. And then there's the challenge. You could challenge yourself, right? Challenge your mind. If that thought comes in like I'm worthless, then just ask it, is this true? We've talked about this before. We talked about it last week, but your amygdala is telling you that you're worthless, okay? Now just ask it, is this actually true? Now that puts it in the prefrontal cortex. Now start working through it, okay? Start to filter through the emotions and the actual thoughts, right? Because those are different. But the facts are, there are people that care about you. You could find random strangers that will care about you. I promise you that. And then you could do the little mindfulness activities. We talked about this last week too. Like name 4 blue things in the room, or the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Name 5 things that you can see. Name 4 things you can hear. Name 3 things that you can smell. 2 things that you could touch. 1 thing that you can. 3 things. Whatever. I'm getting lost, but you get it. Like work through your sensory areas, and then that's going to get you in that prefrontal cortex. It starts to rewire your brain, right? I used a lot of distraction. I have used a lot of distraction in recovery, and I'm not saying that distraction is the go-to forever. You have to address what's going on. But if it's so freaking intense, blare some loud music, right? Like I've had dance-off parties by myself in my house, and I've like yelled at my dog to dance with me, and like that's enough to make me laugh. I don't know why. He looks at me like I'm an idiot, and he's not wrong, folks. He's not wrong. But this is just one of those things that gets you into this distraction mindset. Just stop the loop, so then you can go back and address what the heck is going on, right? It's very important. And I understand that control is a stretch when your brain is throwing a tantrum, because our brains throw tantrums. But I've stopped a spiral. I've stopped a spiral before in my head by yelling at my dog to dance with me. That poor pup just looks so confused, but it worked. I laughed instead of cried. Bingo. There you go. Your brain's a toddler sometimes, right? Just learn how to outsmart it. It's very important. So what about the feelings in recovery? So addiction is a suicide accelerant, right? You drink to kill the pain, but then it amplifies it, right? 15% of addicts attempt suicide versus 1% of the general population. 15% of addicts attempt suicide versus 1% of the general population, okay? Substance abuse is going to exacerbate all of this. It's going to amplify it. It's an accelerant for this, okay? 70% of relapses are tied to unaddressed pain. Pain, not confusion, not sadness, just pain. It's where it goes beyond to the next level where it actually hurts, okay? AA and NA meetings, those help to cut ideation by 20% because you're going through this realm of shared vulnerability, which is very important, right? You've got step 5 where, you begin to confess your wrongs from step 4 that you put together, and this forces you to feel the pain that you've caused. I did this, telling everyone in that room that I lied, I was, all of the things that I did. I felt like dying, but I was genuinely living by just letting go of what I was hanging on to. This isn't just for addicts, though. The same applies to hiding pain in your job, your family, your relationships, your mirror, even the crap that you tell yourself when you're talking to yourself, right? It's very important. It's an important process. But then you've got, again, it's not just addiction and recovery, that you've got feelings everywhere, right? Suicidal thoughts aren't just for sick people. They're a human thing, right? I read something in Psychological Bulletin that talked about it was talking about real life applications for what helps with these suicidal thoughts, and meaningful tasks help a lot. So like work, if you could find meaningful tasks, helping others is a big one. This begins to cut that ideation, right? Relationships, close bonds help reduce the risk of suicide. And then you've got, emotional expression, which lowers stress-related illness. Emotional expression lowers the illnesses that you physically gain from stress, okay? So don't bottle all of this up. This is not a fairy tale, by the way. The pain is real, and hiding it is 1,000 times worse, I promise you. I've hidden it, sober or not, smiling while my head was screaming at me, and you do it too. I know you do. So just stop. Face the pain, find the meaning, and freaking connect. Get rooted. Take your freaking shoes off and go stand out in the freaking grass. I'm telling you, just that helps. Lay down in the grass if you're feeling froggy. Just do it. It connects you. It gives you a different vibe. For me, constantly cracking open this Bible, and I don't even have to have a plan. I could go to one spot and just read, and I can guarantee you that just being in God's Word, it doesn't have to be an hour. You don't have to do a full study. Like just getting to a point where I'm able to read, I'm able to talk with God, and I'm able to breathe. Like for me, that has saved my life. I am where I am today because I have that type of relationship with God. Praying constantly. Paul talks about being in a constant state of prayer. I've talked about this in previous episodes too, but like it's a big request, but I constantly go to God and say, help me see myself the way that you see me. Because the way that I see me, the way that my brain's wanting me to see me, I'm a pathetic, worthless human being. Okay? Face the pain, find meaning, and connect. It's not easy, but this is life. Okay? It's not going to be easy. Tip number 3, final tip, is just find a reason. Find purpose. Purpose kills hopelessness, and here's how it happens. Set a goal, okay? One thing, like for example, like I'm going to go help a friend, right? This is going to cut that suicidal thinking, right? Now you have this feeling of worth and value, and it's almost like this responsibility you've bestowed upon yourself, right? You can write it down. We've talked about mindfulness stuff. List one reason to stay. My kids need me, whatever it may be. It begins to boost that resilience for you. Okay, and then you got to act. You got to follow up with it, right? Do one meaningful task. If you say that you're going to go help a friend, go help a friend, right? Do one meaningful task. Pick up the trash. Pick up just a random piece of trash that you see out in public. Take your neighbor's trash can down to the side of the road, when it's trash day. Something, right? This begins to boost that self-efficacy by a lot. You begin to believe in yourself a little bit more. And in recovery, this happens a lot, right? Like I found my purpose in helping others. It's step 12. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. You all have helped me so much because you reach out to me and you talk to me and you talk about like what's banging you up and what's going on in your head. And that's so beautiful because I am not God. I can't fix you, but I could point you in a direction and say, hey, I've dealt with that before and this actually helped me. Maybe you should try it out. I don't know. And it's a wonderful place to be. I told you guys, like, this is a journal for me too. This helps me a lot being able to do this. But I mean, I do this everywhere now, right? Call, just show up, whatever. Find your reason. It's very important. It's your anchor. All right. Here's the brutal truth behind all of this. Suicide is an absolute liar. It's whispering that the pain is forever, and it's not. I promise you it's not. You're here, you're fighting, and that is proof that you're stronger than whatever void suicide is, right? The science says that connection, action, and purpose is what's going to save lives in all of this, right? And in recovery, it's the line between sobriety and collapse. And in life, it's the difference between existing and thriving, all right? Reach out, break the loop, find a reason. I'm sober because I fought, and I'm alive because I chose to, period, all right? Your challenge for the week is do one thing. Do one thing today. Call someone, name your pain, find a purpose. You are not alone, I swear to you. You can always, always, always reach out to me. I'm not joking you. soberpsychology@gmail.com. Sober Psychology on all socials. Message me, whatever. Hit me up on YouTube if you're watching it on here. Hit me up on Spotify, whatever. I'll see your comment. I promise you. I'm not big. I'm not a big enough, content creator to not see your comment. I see it and I'll respond to it, right? You can reach out. I'll give you my contact information if the conversation leads to that. Well, I'll sit down and have a call with you once a week if that's what it takes. Whatever it is, right? You can reach out. You're not alone in all of this. I swear to you. And again, I'll link it down at the bottom or I'll put it down at the bottom, but call 988. If you are struggling with suicidal thoughts, if it is so overwhelming and you don't think that you have anybody to call 988, completely free. They're not going to try and sell you on anything. They are there for you. This is very important. Our government is starting to pay attention to this. We're starting to see more and more of the emphasis being put on mental and emotional health. We're seeing a lot more shows that are catering to emotional regulation, like this pop psychology crap that people talk about. Like, it's starting to focus more on like, how are we beginning to regulate? Okay. It's very important. You are loved and you are worth it. I believe that God created everybody in his image and God doesn't make mistakes, regardless of what you think, how mad you are at the church, how mad you are at other Christians, whatever. Okay. That's a different conversation for a different day. You were made wholly, beautifully, wonderfully in through God. And that is something to hold on to. You're worth it. Someone wants you around. If you don't want you to be around, someone does. I promise you that. You have a lot to offer, right? Go look at the success stories of human beings that could have ended their lives. And if they're bold enough, they'll talk about it. And then look at what they've done since then. Like I said, I know 2 people who have attempted suicide and failed. And the lives that they lead today with their families, with the people that are counting on them, it's unbelievable. Okay? There is no such thing as hopelessness when it comes to a human life. Hear me say that. You're worth it. You're valuable. I love you. I care about you. Hit me up. I'll respond. Promise. Okay? Sober Psychology crew, thank you for facing this with me. I know this is a heavy episode. We need to do some happy stuff. Okay? It's just what it is. We need some happy stuff. Audio folks, we'll catch you next time. YouTube warriors, smash that like button if this hit deep at all. Subscribe if you're new. Much appreciated. Thank you for being here. And then just comment down at the bottom. What is your reason to keep going? All right? Keep it raw. Keep it real. And until next time, just fight because you're 100% worth it. Guarantee you. Keep your head up. Keep your heart open. Go help somebody. I love you guys.